Streaming live on WFLA Now.
Despite growing support for legal marijuana here in the Sunshine State, Floridians will not get to vote on recreational pot this year. But the effort isn't dead. Backers of marijuana legalization efforts here in Florida saying that their proposal might be on the ballot in the next several years. Hey there, everybody. JB Buna here with you live on WFLA Now. This is news I'm sure that many of our Facebook fans are going to find to be disappointing. Others who are going to be breathing a sigh of relief, depending on which side of this issue you fall on. Of course, we're talking about recreational marijuana here in the Sunshine State. We know that marijuana is legal for recreational use right now in 10 states: Alaska, California, most recently Illinois, Colorado, Maine, Michigan, Nevada, Oregon, Washington, and 8 more states have legalization efforts that are currently underway. I want to introduce you to the chairman of Make It Legal Florida, Nick Hansen. He's joining us on the phone. Hey there, Nick. I want to get a little bit of some perspective from you on this. Again, the announcement that legalizing marijuana, that amendment that a lot of folks here in the state of Florida have been waiting for some time, will not be on the ballot later this year. For all of us, for everybody joining our viewers on WFLA Now, perhaps you could provide a little bit of the reason.
Sure, JB, thanks for having me, and I really appreciate the opportunity to sort of get out to the voters and listeners out there, the mechanisms by which we are still going to continue to push for increased access and adult use of marijuana. Really what you run into is a pretty high bar. When we started this effort in August of 2019, we knew we had a very short window of time in order to collect the almost 800,000 verified signatures from Florida voters required to gain access to the ballot. On top of that, you also have to have the language of the amendment approved by the Supreme Court. And so really where we fall today is in looking at our different legal recourses and the time left, February 1, in order to make the 2020 ballot, you have to have the 766,200 petitions from Florida voters verified and transmitted to the state by February 1st of 2020. We just didn't see a pathway there. To date, we've collected over 700,000 petitions. Some have been processed, some are still sitting with different supervisors of elections to be processed and verified, and some are on their way still to the supervisors. Those petitions do not go bad. They will then, everything we submit and collect will apply to the 2022 ballot. We are currently scheduled to begin oral arguments before the Supreme Court to certify our language February, the first week of February this year. And just yesterday, Senator Brandis, a Republican leader in the state Senate, filed a legalization bill that is remarkably similar to our amendment. And it also includes lots of other things in there, like criminal justice reform and decriminalization of cannabis use. So by no means are we at a loss. There's a lot of disappointment for not being able to make the deadline for 2020 in terms of what we've done since August 1st, the amount of petitions we've collected, the money we've raised, the awareness we've brought up, and the fact that there is legislation now being filed by members of the majority party pushing for increased access for adults 21 and over for marijuana. I think we have moved the needle significantly, and will continue to do so over the next several months and years.
Where's the confidence level on behalf of your organization when it comes to Make It Legal Florida for 2022? I know that you guys are really going to be renewing your focus on 2022, delaying this a couple of years. Where is the confidence level about getting this on the 2022 ballot, really in just 2 years from now?
Very high. I mean, the way it works is we could have certification for 2022 within the next 3 to 6 months. And the way that works is all of the petitions we've collected to date will continue to be certified. They just roll over they're good for 2 years by law. So if we reach that magic threshold of 766,200, let's say, just pick a date, March 1st of this year, and we also our language is approved by the Supreme Court, we would at that point be on the ballot for 2022, and nothing could change that. So we could know this year by mid-2020 that we are good to go for 2022. So I say that, in looking at the growth of popularity, you sort of mentioned all the states that have adult use on the books now, as well as medical. There's another 37 in total, with I think 6 to 8 more contemplating or are going to be voting on amendments or legislation in the coming year. You look at the growth of popularity for increased access for marijuana, and it's only going to continue to grow as we sort of come out of the shadows of reefer madness and the war on drugs. Folks are starting to understand, even voters and leaders who necessarily may not even engage in use of marijuana understand that it is not the evilness that was once proclaimed. And I think the acceptance of that in medical states as well as adult use states has only further enhanced people's desire to have access to it, as well as the revenue that comes from it and the jobs that are created.
For everybody just joining us here on WFLA Now, JB Buno here live with you in the Stream Center on the phone with the chairman of Make It Legal Florida, Nick Hansen, again reacting to the news that recreational marijuana will not be on the 2020 Florida ballot, but there is now a renewed effort to get it on the ballot in 2022. If you'd like to ask a question to Nick, we're here on Facebook Live, of course, where I see many of you are commenting along here with us, listening to what Nick has to say. Use the hashtag HeyJB. You'll see here underneath me on your screen, you see hashtag HeyJB. If you use that hashtag, I'll be able to see it here in the comments section. I'll be looking for your questions to ask to Nick here while, again, we're talking about the possibility of recreational marijuana being legal here in the next several years here in the state of Florida. There is a growing number of supporters that are out there that want to see this at least make it to the ballot so that it is in the hands of Florida voters to decide whether or not recreational marijuana should be on the ballot. We're also running an interactive poll here on Facebook Live. We'll be revealing the results of that poll. The question, of course, being, should recreational marijuana be legalized in Florida? I see the results coming in right now. They're pretty interesting. Again, we'll reveal them in about, I would say, 5 minutes or so from now. Again, Nick Hansen, the chairman of Make It Legal Florida, here on the phone. Nick, there's a lot of folks out there that believe that medical marijuana is enough. We have 33 states in this country that have medical marijuana legalized, Florida, of course, being one of them. When it comes to the difference between medical marijuana versus recreational marijuana, what do you say to the folks out there, the groups that are out there that say that medical marijuana is enough and recreational marijuana just increases the likelihood of access to teens and younger people when it comes to marijuana?
Well, when you look at adult use marijuana, the first thing we did is construct an amendment that sets the bar at 21 and up. And I think that at that point we can agree that you are an adult and can make adult decisions. What we have seen in states that have allowed adult use or recreational use, the outcomes that were feared just haven't borne out. We do not see a rise in teen usage. In fact, in some states you see just the opposite. And really, there's several theories of what makes that happen. I'm a father of 5, and so what I always tell people is, if you want kids to be curious about something, hide it from them, right? And that's the surefire way for them to get involved and engage in activities that you may disapprove of. What we see happening in places where you have adult use, where it's socialized, where it's understood, where there's parameters put on it, and it's talked about and understood in an open forum, people understand the risks of that. Parents are able better to deal with it. But what we see is, when you drive people to an illicit market, whether it be teenagers or even adults, you have bad outcomes. You look no further than we had a mini crisis with vaping, driven almost entirely by an illicit market of vape products in states and places where people couldn't get access in a way that was legal and safe and regulated. So what we propose, and what I think the movement by and large can agree upon, is when you have a regulated, safe product for adults 21 and over, where you're not hiding it in the shadows, and you can talk about it and openly understand it, you have much better outcomes. And we just haven't seen those sort of deteriorating outcomes that people feared before the laws were passed happen after the enactment. So I would say to those folks, it's nothing to be scared of. We heard these same arguments with medical, and I think you take yourself back not even 3 to 4 years, when folks were worried about calling it head shops in every corner and people in the streets. That just hasn't happened. What you've really seen happen is people that have access to medical have seen it used for the 10 qualifying conditions. I have yet to meet somebody who has gotten a medical marijuana card who regrets it. And I meet people every day, and I get emails and phone calls from folks who are just thankful for those who push that law, because now they are off pharmaceuticals. Their health outcomes are far superior than they were in traditional medicines, and they're able to take control of how they dose themselves and how they manage their, whether it be for pain or relief of nerve damage or whatever the condition may be. You see that happening. And so when you transition that to adult use, we say this is a product that can be used as a wellness product. There are people who don't qualify for the 10 qualifying conditions, but maybe they have minor sleep issues. Maybe they have anxiety. Maybe it's to regulate appetite. Maybe it's just to relax. And we should not be holding that back from adults to make those decisions, because we don't do it in any other sector, but we do it with this, and we already know that much of what people fear about marijuana just isn't true.
We have our first comment with the hashtag HeyJB that is in the form of a question. Everybody, again, if you use hashtag HeyJB in the Facebook Live comment section here, we'll be able to ask a question here too. Again, Nick Hansen, chairman of Make It Legal Florida, joining us here live on WFLA Now. The question is, it's a softball question here for you, Nick. Sarah Bedard says, hashtag HeyJB, how and where do I sign the petition? And of course, Nick, it's worth noting that you are, just because it won't be on the 2020 Florida ballot, this is an effort that you can still, of course, sign your name on the dotted line in support of a later year.
Absolutely. If you had, I would say, first, you can go to makeitlegalflorida.com and download the petition. You can fill in your information. It will pre-fill out the form. You print it out and mail it to us. We are still collecting thousands of petitions every day. I mean, I think we had 6,000 come in today in the mail. We're still processing. We are continuing. I want to make this clear. We are. If you have a petition in the mail that you got, or you grab one from a circulator or one of the dispensaries, send it on in. We are still actively collecting. The campaign is not shut down. All that simply happened is we understand that we were not going to meet the deadline to make the 2020 ballot, but we are pushing forward, and it would not, it should come as no shock that once these petitions that are currently what we call in the pipeline or in the process of being validated, we could see, us making the ballot for 2022 by mid this year or before. So I would recommend anybody who's listening who hasn't signed the petition and wants to can go to makeitlegalflorida.com, put in your information, and it will create a PDF that you can print off yourself, or you can email us and we'll send one to you via mail.
We have a comment here from WFLA Top Facebook fan Amy Staley here in the comment section. Again, I'm monitoring all the comments that are coming in. It's not really a question, but it's a comment that I want to give you a chance, Nick, to respond to here. Amy writing, seems like a lot of people in Florida like smoking marijuana, not for medical purposes. I think what Amy is referring to, of course, is that we do have medical marijuana that is legal here in the Sunshine State, but now, of course, there is this renewed effort, this effort really that is growing in popularity to get recreational marijuana legalized. What do you have to say to Amy's comment there, Nick?
Well, sure. I mean, listen, it's definitely a product that enhances and is used in different ways. And I would say, we saw, I think I'll address the smokable issue, because we saw smokable medical marijuana approved by the legislature a little less than a year ago in March of this past year of 2019. And that has been wildly successful. And the reason for that is, while we have vaping and tinctures and oils, and there's all sorts of other ways to introduce the drug into the body, including topical creams, we know that what we call whole flower, or the traditional flower, pre-rolled joints or smokables, is really the best way, because it has all of the plants engaged in all the endocannabinoids, all the cannabinoids, and everything comes with it. We call it the entourage effect. And so you'll find people who say, man, vaping is nice, but I really like whole flower. And so that popularity, if you just go, the great thing about Florida is you can go on to OMMU, which is the Office of Medical Marijuana Use, and it tracks every week how many grams are sold by oil, by flower, and the popularity of whole flower, the traditional joints or loose flower, is the most popular, bar none. And you talk to anybody with a medical card, it's just they find that their feedback is overwhelming that it is the best way for so many different ailments, so many different qualifying conditions. So I think what you'll see folks in Florida, they want to have a Florida-style recreational or adult use program. And we really tailored our amendment to do that. And what we simply said was, if you're a medical marijuana treatment center today or in the future, you will have the ability to dispense both medical and adult use. And we really tried to align those things, and that included the smokable form, which is by far the most popular.
We have a comment here from David Kelly in the comment section saying #HeyJB. Why was it taken off of the ballot? Just want to make it clear it was never really on the ballot to begin with here for 2020. It's going to be perhaps considered if, again, the proper threshold is met for, again, on the phone here with Nick Hansen, chairman of Make It Legal Florida, that the effort is to get it on the 2022 ballot here in the state of Florida. One of the things I want to ask you, because a lot of commenters are vaguely referring to this, Nick, the dollars and cents of this. Of course, other states that have legalized recreational marijuana have taxed it. There is a sizable surplus that is potentially weighting the state of Florida when it comes to legalizing recreational marijuana, of course, depending on how, of course, it is taxed. What is the stance on Make It Legal Florida's? What is the organization's stance when it comes to the financial aspect of legalizing marijuana here in the Sunshine State?
That's a great question, and it's one of the things that kind of gets lost in the euphoria of bringing the marijuana out of the shadows and into a legalized state is the revenue side of it. Right now, we don't tax medical marijuana because it's classified as a medicine. So there's really no revenue generated to the state outside of what you pay for your card and application fees from the treatment centers that are the licensed holders that can distribute. Part of the process is the state puts together an economic impact study group for every amendment. And they bring in experts and they talk through that. We believe that a mature market, and this is done by analysts who spend a lot of money investing in medical and marijuana companies across the country, the stock exchange, these are different funds that analyze it. Looking at a mature Florida recreational market is anywhere between $350 million to $450 million annually reoccurring a year. The state would really set the bar for how they would tax this, and if we were to legalize. Right now, we have a 6 or 6.5% standard tax. This legislature would step in and then make the decision. Our amendment is silent on how to tax it. Typically, in amendments, when they are passed in Florida, the legislature has the ability to pass laws that are called implementing bills, and it's basically ways to write rules. Sort of round out the edges, answer some questions you can't really put in an amendment, be as prescriptive. They can write rules as long as they don't do anything that goes against what the amendment said. So I would fully assume, should we be successful in 2022 and the amendment is passed, the legislature would then step in and say how they would like to tax this. Or they could just leave it at the current tax that we have on products today. They could do that. And even in that scenario, you're looking at a $400 million reoccurring annual to the state.
Everybody, again, Nick Hansen, chairman of Make It Legal Florida, here live with us in the WFLA Now Stream Center. According to the article, of course, on WFLA.com, and this is according to the statement by Nick's organization, Make It Legal Florida. It reads, with the support of over 67% of Florida voters, Make It Legal Florida is proud to have gathered more than 700,000 signed petitions in the effort to bring adult-use cannabis to the Sunshine State. I mention this statement because you have it there with the support of over 67% of Florida voters, Nick. I have closed the interactive poll that we're running here on WFLA's Facebook page. Our poll, largely unscientific because we're doing it for our digital audience, and it's not just here in the state of Florida. It's really anywhere on the internet that anyone is watching us from here on WFLA Now. But the question was, should recreational marijuana be legalized here in Florida? The poll results are 82% saying yes, 11% saying no, and 7% deciding that they do not want to give an answer for whatever reason. You did not have to vote in the poll if you did not want to. But 82%, again, unscientific results, but saying that recreational marijuana should be legalized here in the state of Florida. Nick, before we let you go, just, I guess, your reaction to those numbers, and then also just anything else that you'd like to get across here while we have you live here on WFLA Now before we say farewell.
Well, those numbers are music to my ears, and really we have, about 5 public polls done this year or this past year in 2019 that put the approval of likely voters, between 65 and 70%. We know that number is going to continue to grow. as more states come online and more people are introduced to areas and folks who are engaged in adult use. And I think that speaks volumes. And I think you look at the legislation filed yesterday by Senator Brandis. We have a Republican out there sponsoring major legislation for legalization. It's not a question of if, it is a question of when we're going to have adult use in the state of Florida. And I would say to your listeners out there, if you haven't yet, please do sign the petition at makeitlegalflorida.com. You can download it right there and send it in. If you have an issue with a printer, send us an email. We'll get you one in the mail. By no means is the campaign over. It's just postponed to a later date. But we are excited about our Supreme Court review coming up the first week of February. And we are excited that we are well on our way and very close to having all the signatures needed to be able to be on the ballot in 2022.
Everybody, again, Senator Brandis, as Nick, right on cue. He took the words right out of my mouth. Senator Brandis, the Republican out of St. Petersburg, filing State Bill 1860, which would legalize marijuana for adult use. We have a link to that bill for you on WFLA.com and the free WFLA app. If you're joining us on Facebook Live, click the link in the description on this video. It'll take you to the article where you can read more about this story and read more about the bill. Again, that was filed, State Bill 1860. I'd like to thank Nick Hansen, chairman of Make It Legal Florida, for joining us. And I'd like to thank all of you for joining us here on WFLA Now for this live interactive discussion. More in our later newscast tonight, and more on WFLA.com and the WFLA app. I'm JB Buno for Nick Hansen. Thanks so much for being with us. We'll see you later. Take care.